lot has happened in the 3 days since you and I last met and discussed the Damar Hamlin situation. It feels like 3 months or maybe 3 years, but a crazy week is coming to a conclusion, capped by some very good news about the status of Damar Hamlin.
I think, Mike, all along, as I recorded my podcast this week with Mike Ryan, who's NBC Sports medical specialist, and as I recorded that, one of the things he said really stuck with me when I listened to the doctors. And he talked about how the speed with which the Buffalo sidelines got to Damar Hamlin really, and obviously the incredible skill that they used on Damar Hamlin right away made all the difference in the world. Because, Mike, you know that Damar Hamlin is an elite athlete. Everyone on that field is an elite athlete. And so they're obviously going to be prone to be able to recover from most injuries fairly quickly. Most injuries are not the stopping of one's heart. And so to see that CPR was done quickly, to see it was done efficiently, to see that he was getting oxygen right away, and to see, there was one other sign, and this surfaced yesterday, that the ambulance actually paused while it waited, before rushing to the Level 1 Trauma Center, the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. The ambulance actually paused, and that is, according to experts, to stabilize the patient, to make him well, because in essence, the back of an ambulance is, and I know this is a terrible way to put it, it's a poor man's emergency room. And so at that moment, there was value in pausing this, making sure they have everything right. Because look, even though it's a short ride to the hospital, clearly things can happen on that short ride to the hospital. And you're on bumpy roads and all that. So they got him stabilized. And look, Mike, without any question, the MVPs of this are the medical officials on the field, and the fact that they were able to stabilize Damar Hamlin, get his heart going. And look, the last thing that Mike Ryan left me with, when I asked him, and I kind of talked to him off the air and on the air, and I asked him off the air, should we be concerned at all that it's a couple of days and you really haven't heard very much, from, yet? And he goes, no, because the body has been through an incredible trauma. And you know what the body needs now? To rest, to be sedated, to allow this body to simply try to recover. And everything that Mike Ryan said turned out to be absolutely true. And that is why I think we got such good news. The initial prognosis on the field, or diagnosis, and then the medical action of experts on the field going all the way to the hospital. I think, it's ironic. I talked to Calais Campbell yesterday, the former NFL Man of the Year, and I always call him when it's events like this, or when there's serious events around the league, and I asked him what he thought. And he and I were talking about how, man, if you ever want to get hurt, if you ever have a medical crisis, it's not bad to have one on a football field, because there's 30 medical experts at every NFL game, at least, including EMTs and everything else. So, just thank goodness that Damar Hamlin is starting to recover now.
We welcome in the folks enjoying the program on Peacock, Sirius XM 85, Sky Sports NFL, where we are still live on Fridays, and also listening via podcast. It is a day that has a celebratory feel to it based upon what we learned yesterday. There was a press conference with two of the doctors who have been providing care to Damar Hamlin, and it went on for a solid hour. And it got better and better. Peter, it was so uplifting and inspirational to hear the various things that came from these two gentlemen. I almost wanted to go back and watch it again. It made me feel better after these 72 hours of a collective trauma that anyone who was paying attention to that game on Monday night, and there were undoubtedly millions, probably more than 25 million. I haven't seen the numbers from Monday night. I don't know that they've been published, but it was the biggest regular season game of the year, the most significant, the most eventful as the season was coming to a conclusion. We all witnessed it. We all were troubled by it. And yesterday was a day to finally exhale after holding our breaths during this period of time that you referred to, that Mike Ryan talked about for the body to heal, because we just didn't know. We found out a lot yesterday, courtesy of Dr. Timothy Pritz and Dr. William Knight. Here is some of that press conference during which they gave us very detailed updates about the status of Damar Hamlin.
We would like to share that there has been substantial improvement in his condition over the past 24 hours. As of this morning, he is beginning to awaken, and it appears that his neurological condition and function is intact.
It's been a long and difficult road for the last 3 days. He has been very sick and has made a fairly remarkable recovery and improvement to the point, as Tim noted, he is now demonstrating that sign of good neurologic recovery, as well as overall clinical improvement, as has been previously reported, related to not just his vital signs, but a lot of his other individual organ recovery.
The Bills training staff who was with him immediately recognized that this was not a run-of-the-mill injury and that they had a significant event on their hands, and immediately responded and got the emergency response team involved in his care. And really, this went as well as something like this could go under very challenging circumstances. Last night, he was able to emerge and follow commands and even ask who had won the game.
Damar's family is wonderful. They've been right here. They've been great throughout the entire stay. And so, have we felt it? Yeah. It doesn't take long to look outside and see the lights, the blue and the red around the city of Cincinnati, the support from local restaurants, the support from the fans, and just people who are concerned. So, yes, it's been very powerful.
It really has been amazing how an event like this has brought folks together and pierced through the years of dysfunction that we've all felt as a nation and brought people together. And there's nothing like an event like this, as bad as it is, as worrying and as troubling as it's been. The one big positive is it's brought people together in a way that we have a shared concern for Damar Hamlin, his family, and everyone affected by this. And Peter, the moment that got me yesterday, the idea that when he emerged from the sedation, unable to speak because he still has external breathing assistance because of the damage to his lungs, but he's able to write. And the first thing he wrote was, "Did we win?" I'm telling, and I've heard from other people who had this same reaction. It is the real life equivalent to the moment in Rocky 2 when Adrian comes out of her coma and tells Rocky, "Win." It just felt like I wanted to go run into the nearest wall once I saw that, because it told us he's there. When he wakes up after all of that, if the first thought is, did we win, that tells me Damar Hamlin is neurologically intact, is going to get back to normal. It doesn't matter whether he plays football again. What matters is, will he have a normal life on or off the field? And that told me it sure looks like he will.
Well, Mike, when I heard that yesterday, and when I saw the other things that the doctor said about him, did we win? Yes. And the doctor said, yeah, you won in the game of life. I mean, this is bizarre. I'm a person of a certain age. I'm 65 years old. And the first thing I thought of was Brian's song. And I thought to myself that, you know what the Damar Hamlin story is going to be one day, and probably one day soon, if the current trajectory continues? It's going to be this generation's Brian song. And for those who don't know what Brian's song is, it was a 1971 movie about a Chicago Bears player named Brian Piccolo, whose best friend on the team happened to be Gale Sayers, one of the great running backs of all time. Brian Piccolo was a running back, and Brian Piccolo contracted cancer, and he ended up dying. And his attitude and his positivity have stuck with those around him for years and decades. And it became a movie, and it inspired the country. Everybody was talking about it. There was a middle school in Queens, at 900 miles away from where Brian Piccolo played football, that was named after Brian Piccolo after that movie came out. And I honestly think that, let's see, we're very early in this story, but this is going to be a story for a generation to tell.
Oh, and I agree with you completely. And the fact that we have good news really, it lifts the cloud off of so many of us who have been paying attention to it. And it is quite a story to tell. And as you said earlier, as Calais Campbell mentioned to you, if you're going to have a serious health event, the place to have it is in an NFL stadium on an NFL field, because of the level of care that is available to immediately mobilize, recognize the problem, even if it's a problem that rarely happens, that has almost never happened at any NFL game ever. Chuck Hughes' situation has been mentioned
25 years
several times this week. But that was 71. It's been 52 years since Chuck Hughes that there's been something like this, where now there have been serious head and neck injuries, but those are the things that we've come to expect. As horrible as they are, they're more normal, if there's anything normal about an injury like that, to the game of football, because that's what we're conditioned to be worried about. We're not conditioned to be worried about somebody having cardiac arrest. So the fact that we do have good news about Damar Hamlin really has been the brightest part of a very dark week. The doctors did say yesterday, Peter, too early to say whether or not Damar Hamlin can return and play football, and that really is immaterial. And wouldn't it be amazing if he could? That is icing on top of the cherry, on top of the icing, on top of the cherry, on top of the icing, on top of the cake, if he's able to ever play football again. I just want this young man, 24 years old, to have a normal life. I want him to be able to administer the millions of dollars that have been donated to his toy drive. I want him to live like everyone else does, a normal day in and day out life. And it seems like that's what's going to happen. So it really was a great, great day. After 72 hours of uncertainty, to know that it looks like he's going to be okay. And there's still a lot that needs to happen. But so far, so good. And it's really good, based upon what we heard yesterday. We also heard from Sean McDermott, the Bills head coach, for the first time since Monday night's game. Here is McDermott talking about the support that has emerged nationwide, along with those millions of dollars that have been donated by hundreds of thousands of people to Damar Hamlin's toy drive.
I'm not a big social media person, but Josh did share something with me via text that he saw earlier today, and I looked at it, and it was maybe you've seen it. It's about what maybe Damar's mom is going to share with him when he wakes up, and excuse me. It's amazing to know the impact that this has had on so many people, and for now Damar to be awake and his mom to be able to share that with him it's incredible.
Powerful words from Sean McDermott, the man really at the center of this, the coach who told Zach Taylor, the Bengals coach, in the immediate aftermath of the moment, I can't stay here and coach this game. I have to go to the hospital with Damar Hamlin. There's the toy drive at $7.7 million and still going up and up and up. Peter, the Bills have been through a lot this year. They've been through a lot. And even if they hadn't been through anything, what they've been through the last 3 days is something no NFL team in this modern era with this much focus and this much attention on the sport have ever experienced.
I mean, look, from having, and look, this totally pales in comparison, obviously, losing their home game and having to play the Cleveland Browns in Detroit. But everything about their season, especially the back half of it, has just been a little weird. From on that weekend, having to, recruit people to go plow Josh Allen's quarter-mile driveway, so that he could get to the team bus to get to go play the Cleveland Browns. And there's just been so many things. You go back, into the spring where there was the shooting at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, where 10 people were gunned down. There are just so many things that have happened to this city that, I saw one of the local news anchors in Buffalo say something to the effect of, this, Damar Hamlin, this is too much. It's too much for us to bear. We need some good news here. And that's one of the reasons why, why this really occurred to me about how wonderful this was. A friend of mine in Buffalo sent me a photo on Tuesday night, or I think Wednesday night. And the photo basically was of a home in a neighborhood in Buffalo that had been lit up in Bills colors and had a gigantic "Pray for Damar" sign on the front. I mean, somebody had gone to the effort to spend hours and hours of making this display. That's what, as Brandon Beane has said on many occasions, unless you live here, unless you're from here, unless you know here, Buffalo, you really can't understand. It's like no other place. It just is. And it's been so touching how so many people have gotten involved. And you saw the emotion that Sean McDermott displayed just talking about that toy drive. I talked to one of his very good friends yesterday, Damar Hamlin's very good friends, going back to Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh. His name is Rodney Thomas II. He plays for the Indianapolis Colts. And just like Damar, he is a defensive back. Came in 1 year after Damar. Damar was his mentor at Central Catholic. And, he went on to even advise him about his college choice. And so he rushed to the hospital on Tuesday morning from Indianapolis to be with Damar. He said he was in his room for about 13 hours and with his family. And he said it was just one of those things, he had to be there. But the point I wanted to make about Rodney Thomas is that he said that if you knew Damar, I said to him, Rodney, Tom Brady gave $10,000 to Damar Hamlin's toy drive. And he goes, it's unbelievable. But he said, it isn't unbelievable if you know Damar Hamlin and how unselfish he is and what an incredible person he is. And he said, when I was getting ready to go to college, it was like, it was in part his decision too. He was so intent on me making the right decision. And so over and over again, you've heard these stories all week that one of the reasons that, you saw that the New York Post on Wednesday morning had on its back page a player from the Buffalo Bills with the banner headline, America's Son. And that's really Damar Hamlin, without saying anything or doing anything, but by laying in a hospital bed, has gotten so many people in America to be gigantic Damar Hamlin fans. And I just think it's just a beautiful thing that you're right, Mike. We don't come together for anything in this country. We came together for Damar Hamlin.
And that toy drive, with the initial goal of $2,500, I smile every time I see that $2,500 and then look at the number where it is. Peter, I've said this a few times this week. It reminds me of the final scene of It's a Wonderful Life, where they all show up. $8,000 is all George Bailey needed. And I don't know how many ended up with. There's a scene where the guy's there with the old school machine counting it all up. There's so much there by the time it's all said and done. That's how uplifting it is, that we are capable of coming together. Now, there are plenty of signs and signals still around us all the time that in many ways we aren't, but this is one way that we are. And let's all choose to embrace that for a little while, as a reminder that we're all the same at our core and that we all have the same values and beliefs deep down, and we all are capable of being moved to significant emotion and acting based upon that emotion. And here's another angle, Peter. Yesterday, Chris Sims and I were talking about how no matter what happens with Damar Hamlin, this incident, and even if it wasn't commotio cordis that caused his cardiac arrest, they don't know yet what caused his cardiac arrest. But experts have said in the event of a sudden blow to the chest, cardiac arrest can happen. And I had been aware of that for years because it's one of the concerns in youth baseball. You get hit in the chest by a line drive, pitcher, third baseman, anyone on the field, you get hit hard enough, you go into sudden cardiac arrest, nobody knows what happens, and the child dies before anybody's even realized what's gone on. This will save lives. People will be aware of this now. People hopefully will go get trained in CPR. And one of the things that was very encouraging, it didn't get a lot of fanfare. It happened last night. Gail Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints and New Orleans Pelicans, funding 67 AEDs to be deployed all throughout their area, recreational complexes, baseball, football, so that if something like this happens, when it happens, because it has happened, this isn't unprecedented, it's rare, but it happens. Well, maybe the kid who takes a blow to the chest in a youth sporting event and falls to the ground, maybe the Damar Hamlin situation will save that person's life. And maybe a lot of times when something happens and it makes us sensitive to a thing and there isn't a clear line back, I think at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to hear a story about somebody who was revived and somebody who was saved. And part of the story is going to be, I'm aware of this because of what happened to Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely. And I thought that gesture by Gail Benson was absolutely awesome. I don't know what I'm going to do in my column about that on Monday, but it's going to have a place in my column. That is one of the nicest gestures, as well as the entire NFL community. Honestly, Mike, you've seen, scores of people and teams donating to Damar Hamlin, but you're absolutely right. I'm really glad you brought that up. I didn't know whether we would do much on that today or not, but look, there's so much to talk about and so much in the news about this and about what the NFL is doing. We shouldn't forget when people like Gail Benson do something for the common good that really means something to a large swath of people who you're absolutely right, someone someday is going to be positively affected. I heard one doctor talk about what happens at NFL stadiums with all of the medical personnel at medical stadiums. I mean, Mike, there's so many medical people at stadiums, and it includes an emergency intubation specialist. And I don't know if that person's skills had to be used Monday night with Damar Hamlin. I don't know, but the level of intricate skills available at that NFL stadium. I saw a doctor this week say, if someone is walking out of the stadium after the game and is, say, 2 blocks away walking to the parking lot and falls on the sidewalk and his heart stops, he might not make it, because if someone doesn't get to him in time to perform CPR, he's not going to make it. And it's almost it just is a reminder that inside an NFL stadium is such a well covered place. But Mike, congratulations to you for bringing up Gail Benson. I think that's a great thing.
Well, and here's hoping that what Gail Benson has done will inspire others, whether it's the 31 other owners, the other NBA owners, baseball, hockey, people of significant means, people of net worths that can't be calculated without drawing many zeros on the page, will engage in that simple gesture. And let's make sure that the organizations in the communities responsible for setting the budgets and distributing the money that's available understand the importance now of having these AEDs deployed anywhere and everywhere. There's a chance somebody is going to take a blow to the chest and go into cardiac arrest. And this all flows directly from what happened to Damar Hamlin. It makes us all aware of it, and the next step is to get us all to act on it. And Gail Benson blazing that trail, hopefully for others to do the same. And inevitably, it's never going to be like being in an NFL stadium, because that's one of the concerns I have this week. You hear all of this great stuff about all of the medical expertise that's available in an NFL game, but what about the high school kid out in the middle of nowhere who's playing football, and all that's there is an ambulance? I remember being at a game my son played, and a kid suffered maybe a head or a neck injury, and it just felt like it was taking forever for them to take him to a hospital, to the point where it was excruciating. And then they're going to have to go a lot farther than roughly a mile away to get the kid to a place where he gets the proper care. So whatever can be done to improve that basic baseline at the various places where sports are played by the youth or anyone, this is a moment that a lot of good can be done, all because of what happened to Damar Hamlin. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.